Hey everybody, hidden beneath the surface of the earth are secret places that are shrouded in mystery and history. From ancient cities buried over centuries to secret bunkers and forgotten tunnels. Join me, we're taking a look at the most secret underground places in the world. Building underground has always been a popular choice for secret or concealed facilities, as there are a number of advantages that come from it, such as security, stealth, and isolation. Underground spaces provide natural barriers from physical and digital surveillance, making them ideal for sensitive operations. The need for secrecy in certain facilities, from government installations and data centers to private labs and secure bunkers, gives underground developments an advantage. These structures are pretty much invisible to satellites and aerial observation, making them harder to monitor, and they use the Earth itself to provide a layer of natural protection. In modern times, though, underground facilities also provide a measure of digital security that's increasingly important. Modern tech enables some electronic signals to penetrate walls. Take a look at the Cappadocia underground cities. Now, these are some of the most surprising and impressive ancient sites in the world. Located in central Turkey, Cappadocia is most famous for its unusual landscape, including those fairy chimneys, which are tall, thin spires of volcanic rock. But beneath the surface, there is a vast network of rooms, tunnels, and passageways that were once thriving underground cities. Believed to have first been built by the Hittites around 8th century BC, and then further expanded by other civilizations like the Byzantines, early Christians, and even the Ottoman Turks, the cities acted as refuges and shelters, protecting their residents from invasions, persecutions, and bad weather conditions. The most well-known of them all is the Derinkuyu underground city, which had been completely forgotten about until it was rediscovered in 1963, when a homeowner found a hidden entrance in their basement during renovations. This led to the city at a depth of up to 280 feet or 85 meters and stretching over 18 levels. Although currently only 8 of which allowed them to be completely self-sufficient over long periods of time. There are churches, chapels, all meaning that normal life could continue no matter what was happening outside. During the Roman and Byzantine periods, they used them to avoid persecution, with the invading armies having no clue that the people were hiding beneath their feet. Let's head to Croatia now and take a look at the Željava Air Base, which is on the border between Croatia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. It is one of the largest and most secretive Cold War military installations in Europe. It was built by the former Yugoslavia between 1948 and 1968. This base was designed to be an indestructible fortress that was able to withstand nuclear attacks. The facility, also known as Object 505, was a hugely complex project, and it shows just how tense the atmosphere of the Cold War era was, especially in Yugoslavia. The base was carved into the side of a mountain at a cost of more than $3.5 billion to complete. The site includes 5 runways and a vast underground complex that was more than 2. This network provided the ability to scramble aircraft without really exposing them to potential airstrikes, which was a critical element during the Cold War. The airbase, though, saw limited active use because it became more of a deterrent than an active combat installation. With the outbreak of the Yugoslav wars in the early 1990s, however, it became a battleground in a different way. And in 1992, Yugoslav forces destroyed the infrastructure to prevent it from being captured by Croatian and Bosnian forces. The detonations during this mission were so powerful that they left massive craters on the runway, and parts of the complex remain hazardous to this day, as there's still unexploded ordnance and mined areas across the site. Let's head over to New York in the United States and City Hall Station. Metro networks involve the creation of miles upon miles of tunnels beneath major cities, and many stations too, but quite often some of these turn out to be far less useful than was originally planned and end up being shut down. The most impressive of any movement, which focused on artistic detail in urban design. They worked with the Spanish architect Rafael Gustavino to create the station's vaulted ceilings, and the rest was truly something special. These ceilings, covered in green and cream-colored tiles, give it a Gothic or Romanesque feel, while brass chandeliers and skylights illuminate the station, allowing natural light to filter down. It was, though, closed to the public in 1945, only 41 years after it opened. The main reason for this was the growing demand for longer subway trains and the station's tight curvature, which was originally designed for smaller trains. Instead of investing in costly renovations, the IRT instead chose to close the station and divert its line through the nearby Brooklyn Bridge station, which could handle longer platforms. While it is closed to regular subway traffic, City Hall Station is still occasionally opened for tours, and passengers on the 6 train can also catch a quick view of the station by staying on the train past the Brooklyn Bridge station, as it makes a loop through City Hall Station to switch directions. Let's fly over to Europe now and take a look at the Erdstall tunnels, a series of uniquely crafted features like small alcoves, schloops, or tight-squeezing holes that connect different sections of a tunnel system. These holes force individuals to crawl, making the tunnels even more difficult to move through and, yeah, a bit claustrophobic. This challenging design has led to some researchers suggesting that Erdstall tunnels were meant to be a defensive shelter. Well, the lack of supplies, ventilation, or clear escape routes within the tunnels, however, means that this is unlikely to have been their main purpose, as they would have been impractical for long-term use. Other suggestions are that the tunnels may have held religious or ritual significance. In medieval European cultures, caves and underground spaces were often associated with spirits or the underworld, and the compact nature of the Erdstall tunnels may have been deliberately designed to create a sense of isolation. Various artifacts have been found here in these tunnels, and it seems to back this up, such as clay pots and small relics, which may have been used in ceremonies. Some folklore even links the tunnels to time, so we're not even sure how large the network is. It will only be by further study that the truth will hopefully one day be revealed. Moving up to Scotland, the Edinburgh Vaults. Edinburgh is a city that's steeped in history, and one of the more fascinating parts of it are the Edinburgh Vaults. Built in 1788 as part of Edinburgh's South Bridge, the vaults are beneath the streets of the city and have been a mysterious place for more than 200 years. The series of chambers were first used as storage and workspaces for the businesses at ground level, but because of their poor construction and damp conditions, they were quickly abandoned. The South Bridge was meant to be something for Edinburgh to be proud of, connecting the old town to the recently established new town. To make the best use of the space below, a series of 120 rooms, vaults, and chambers were constructed into the bridge's arches, creating what was hoped to be a hub of commerce. In the beginning, the businesses moved in like cobblers, blacksmiths, and taverns, but with a lack of waterproofing and poor ventilation, the conditions soon deteriorated. Water seeped down. Guides often hear strange voices, footsteps, and sense an unexplained presence within the chambers. And one of the vault's most famous spirits is known as Mr. Boots, who is said to be a tall, aggressive figure that often chases visitors. Now it's a much-visited tourist attraction, giving people an idea of the darker side of Edinburgh's past. The vaults are known as some of the most haunted places in the whole country, which is said to be a result of the secret horrors that once took place down there. Alright, headed over to Poland with the Wieliczka salt mine. The Wieliczka salt mine, which is near Krakow in Poland, is one of the world's oldest salt mines with a history that dates back over 700 years. It's recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. This mine is made up of at least 186 miles or 300 kilometers of underground tunnels and chambers. For centuries, it was a major source of salt, but today it's something different and has become quite strange, and it's a tourist attraction. According to local legend, the mine's patron, St. Kinga, chapels and decorations made entirely out of rock salt. The most famous of these is the Chapel of St. Kinga, which is the cavernous space that was carved entirely by hand from salt rock. The chapel's decorated with salt crystal chandeliers, altars, and statues, including a detailed copy of Leonardo da Vinci's The Last Supper. It is one of the largest and most beautiful underground chapels in the world, where Mass is still regularly held and weddings and concerts are hosted. The salt is now mostly gone, so the mine is no longer the valued source that it once was, but it is now a tourist attraction where visitors can see how medieval hand tools were used, as well as later innovations such as wooden winches and pulley systems. The mine's ventilation system down there too, and underground lakes, some of which are used to transport salt by boat, are incredible to see. And there's even an underground health spa down there which makes use of the mine's natural microclimate. Let's head south to Italy now and the Naples Underground, or Napoli Sotterranea. It's a hidden labyrinth of tunnels and aqueducts that transformed into an aqueduct system which brought fresh water to Naples from distant sources. And as Naples expanded, so did that underground network. It became one of the most intricate and extensive water systems in Europe. The tunnels were actively used for that purpose until the late 19th century, when water contamination concerns led to their abandonment. During World War II, the Naples Underground took on a new role as air raid shelters for the people. The bombings during the war made the tunnels a vital refuge for civilians, and during this time, to accommodate the increasing number of evacuees, many of the chambers were expanded, and things like lighting, seating, and emergency supplies were added. Walking through these spaces today, you can see the remains of this wartime history, including graffiti, bunk beds, and even personal belongings that were left behind by those who once hid there. The Naples Underground has a number of archaeological sites too, with some sections containing remnants of Roman theaters, Greek ruins, and artifacts that show just how important these tunnels came to be. We're gonna fly over to Vietnam now for the Chu Chi tunnels. These are an extensive. They had kitchens, meeting rooms, storage areas, weapon caches, and even makeshift hospitals, with all these spaces being carefully ventilated and designed to be narrow, which helped defend against foreign soldiers. The entrances to the tunnels were concealed with leaves, sticks, or mud, making them nearly invisible, and the Viet Cong created a series of booby traps within and around the tunnels, such as pits with sharpened bamboo spikes, grenades rigged to tripwires, and explosives linked to pressure plates. Living conditions in the tunnels were pretty harsh. Soldiers faced constant challenges from poor lighting, limited oxygen, cramped spaces, and the threat of flooding during the rainy season. Disease here was a problem too, as the tunnels were often infested with rats, mosquitoes, and other pests. But the Viet Cong endured those conditions, as the tunnels provided safety from aerial bombings and chemical attacks. Today, the Chu Chi tunnels have been preserved as a historical site and developed in ancient Persia, and then later spread throughout the Middle East, Central Asia, North Africa. But unlike wells, which only provide access to groundwater at a single location, qanats involve a series of sloping tunnels that are dug into mountainsides or highlands. These tunnels channel the water downhill over long distances, really without the need for pumps or other mechanical devices. Cleverly, the coral rock and limestone filter the water naturally and remove impurities to provide clean drinking water, but they also reinforce the tunnels, making the qanat system resilient to weather changes and environmental stress. Kari's Kish reaches around 5 miles underground, with tunnels running about 52 feet below the surface, and its structure includes several wells and vertical shafts, some of which are over 100 feet deep and are designed to ventilate the tunnels. The qanat has been partially converted into a cultural center, with sections of the tunnels open for visitors to explore. Inside, you can see some amazingly lit chambers and exhibitions that showcase Persian art, ancient tools, and historical artifacts that show how ahead of their time. The Moose Jaw tunnels dates back to the late 19th century, when a large number of Chinese immigrants arrived in Canada to work on the Canadian Pacific Railway. Following the completion of the railway, many of the workers were left with few opportunities, and discriminatory policies like the Chinese head tax made things even more difficult for them. As a result, some of those in Moose Jaw began to live and work underground and use the tunnels as a refuge from the unwelcome situation above ground. The tunnels allowed them to work in safety and seclusion, taking up jobs in laundries, restaurants, and other small businesses. The tight underground corridors and the hidden rooms became a workplace and a home for them, offering a space where they could live on their own terms. In the 1920s, during the height of Prohibition in Canada and the US, the Moose Jaw tunnels would then take on a new role for bootlegging. Alcohol was illegal in both countries, but the closeness of Moose Jaw to the US border made it the perfect place for smuggling operations. The tunnels the Moscow Metro 2. It's claimed to be a secret underground transit system that operates alongside the public Moscow Metro. Now, officially, its existence has never been confirmed, but accounts from former Soviet officials, urban explorers, and defectors make it more than likely that such a network does actually exist. It's said to have been built during the Cold War to serve the elite members of Soviet society, high-ranking officials, and military personnel. The rumors of Metro 2 go back to the Stalin era, specifically the late 1940s, when Cold War tensions were at their greatest. Known as D6, the alleged system was built under Stalin's orders and designed to protect the Soviet government in the event of a nuclear attack. The depth and extent of Metro 2's tunnels, if they exist, aren't known, but some claim they run deeper than the public Moscow Metro. And with the Soviet government's focus on security infrastructure, the creation of such a network was completely feasible. Some sources have claimed that it could be up to 31 miles long. Still remains unconfirmed. Russian government officials consistently deny its existence, and independent attempts to map or locate the tunnels have failed to come up with any conclusive evidence. Let's head south to India and Baori. Baori, which is in the small village of Abaneri in the state of Rajasthan in India, is one of the most intricate stepwells in the world. It was built over 1,000 years ago, and it dates back to the 9th century and was commissioned by King Chandra of the Nikumba dynasty. Now, stepwells or Baoris were mainly designed as water reservoirs in the dry regions of western India, where rainfall was pretty scarce. But among these structures, the Baori stands out above the rest because of its scale and complexity, and because of the way it looks. The structure is geometric and symmetrical, and descending 13 stories into the earth, it reaches a depth of about 100 feet. Making it one of the deepest stepwells there. The well has over 3,500 narrow steps arranged in a precise and symmetrical pattern, with each tier of steps and walls being covered with carvings and stone sculptures. One side of the stepwell includes a beautifully formed pavilion and a series of chambers that are believed to have been used for royal purposes. These chambers have elaborately carved pillars and sculptures of Hindu deities, most of which are dedicated to Lord Vishnu, as well as motifs that are typical of Rajasthani architecture. It isn't just a place of legend either, with the belief being that Chand-Baori was actually built by spirits in a single night, thanks to how deep, complex, and mysterious it is. Well, this is of course just a myth, and it shows how impressive Chand-Baori was seen to those by those who relied on it, and how it became a central part of their community. Heading north to China, Dijiaqing. Dijiaqing, or the underground city in Beijing, China, is a large network of underground tunnels and bunkers that were built in the 1960s and 70s during the height of the Cold War. They were commissioned by Chairman Mao Zedong, and the city was built as a precautionary